tweets or puts on Facebook or Instagram to do something during the session if you feel motivated to do that, or afterwards, because it's really great to have that kind of activity going on out there in the world. And also if you could tag at Peckham Vision in, so that I can see it afterwards and I can be retweeting and all the rest of it. That's great. Right, I think that's it, Grace. We can now mute everyone. So I'd like to welcome everybody who's arrived so far, again, all to this Peckham Vision event. We're launching George's video, George Okello, who's been a great friend to us now for a couple of years, and it's about Peckham Vision. It's great to see you all. We know you're all friends or supporters of either George's work or of Peckham Vision, so that's a really special audience we've got here. And we're very keen to know your response to the video. So that's in the discussion session, but also afterwards, we'll be sending an email to everybody who booked to give you a chance to tell us what you thought about the video, anything that came up in the discussion or whatever. We're really keen to hear from you. Now, to the video. We met George at the launch of Peckham Levels in November 2017. That was the culmination of our 5-year campaign to stop the demolition of the multi-storey car park. We'd sweated blood on that. And it was even then, it was complicated because we weren't in favor of what had happened in giving the contract to the company that created Peckham Levels. So we had mixed feelings about it, but nevertheless, it was a great celebration. And George turned up filming the launch of Peckham Levels. And so I said to him, seeing a young person in Peckham with all that camera equipment, would he be interested in doing a 5-minute YouTube video about Peckham Vision? Well, 2.5 years later, George has done 3 rather longer videos, one of which we're going to see today, and he's going to say something about it. So it's actually turned into a major piece of work for George, and he will say something about it. And as far as I'm concerned, speaking for myself, I now feel George is part of our volunteer team. So thank you very much, George, for working with us all that time. So you're going to hear about Peckham Vision in the film, so I'm not going to say any more about that at the moment. I'm happy to after the film. But I do at the moment want to introduce 5 of us in the core Peckham Vision team that keeps Peckham Vision going. That's in addition to lots of volunteers who help from time to time. But these 5 people are on it every day, all the time. We meet regularly, we have emails every day, and I want to thank everybody, all the volunteers, especially the members of the core team. And so there's myself, so you'll see a bit more about, I won't say anything more about myself. I'm standing in for Paula Orr, who was going to come, but she's got a small, tiny grandchild who I think she's under 2 years old, and she feels that she wouldn't even be able to switch on mute and unmute while the child is with her. So I'm giving her apologies, and I'm sad that you can't see Paula. But has Clyde turned up yet?
Doesn't look like it.
Oh my goodness. Well, if Clyde, so there's Clyde Watson, who has been with us for quite a long time. We're all local residents, by the way. And so Clyde, if he comes, then we will just ask him to say hello to everybody and wave so that you know who he is. Now, Corinne.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much for coming to see George's video and having a chat afterwards. It's fantastic. My name's Corinne Turner. I've been working alongside Eileen and the other members of the Peckham Vision team for a number of years now. And I can just say quickly that it's been a great privilege to have met George and to have bumped into each other and walked alongside each other for some time now in his creating these pieces of video. So hopefully, I'm looking forward to seeing it, and hope everyone enjoys it. Thank you.
Grace?
Yeah. Did you just want me to say hello to everyone, or do you want me to start the video?
Well, they've already heard quite a bit. You're our technical master at the moment. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks very much. So I'd really like to just say what a great pleasure it is to introduce George. He and I worked together on putting this event together, and we finally made it. And here you are, George. This is your opportunity to say something about your video, what you've been doing, why.
Thank you. Just before we begin, I just wanted to clarify. I'm just going to check the participants. I just want to see if my sister is still in. But she messaged the group saying she was.
She went away and she's come back.
Oh.
She's just giving you a yellow thumb up there. So she's still around.
No? Oh, she's still there.
I'm just going to call Clyde as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see you. How about Clyde? Has he picked up his phone as well?
Did you say Clyde?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just calling him now.
Okay, George, it's over to
I've
you.
not heard from him.
Okay. All right. So, hi for everyone I know and who I'm meeting now or I've met before. So my name is George Ekele, and I basically became aware of, if I was to start right from the start, basically, it was around 2012 where I started to observe the changes around Peckham. So at the time, I was just doing evening shifts, and every time I'd come back, I'd kind of see like this bright, bustling kind of night scene emerge when I was walking back home from like Peckham Rye Station to Peckham Rye. And I think that kind of sparked a curiosity, both as an artist and someone who later transitioned into film, as to socially just to investigate what was going on. So one day I met Peckham Vision at Peckham Levels at the launch, and that kind of opened my eyes to the world of community activism, of being a citizen agent. It kind of just opened my eyes to the fact that things just don't happen the way you imagine they do. It kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities that that you could achieve when you work with an organization such as Peckham Vision. So at the time, I was working with another organization called Creation Trust on a video, which I originally wanted to get involved with. And I quite that was possible. So then I kind of started projects just to kind of explore further into what's happening. Good. Try and find out why, and yeah, I can hear some feedback. Is that was someone looking to say something on? No. Okay, but yeah. So basically, it's a combination of an opportunity between working on one project and then seeing an opportunity of what I could do with something else. So I basically threw myself in at the deep end and decided to try and find out exactly how Peckham Vision works, to find out more about Eileen, to find out more about the team, to find out more about Corinne. And ultimately, I just hoped to present a video that could hopefully inspire people like myself, young people of my generation, to kind of achieve something similar in their communities. Because I think that we're kind of in a period where we feel like as a generation, perhaps we're not being heard or our opinions aren't being acknowledged. And I just think it's amazing that you have people such as Peckham Vision on our doorsteps and we are none the wiser. So I think it's a necessary link up, I believe, to kind of, to put us in a good stead to help build a better relationship between the government and the local people and young people in the future. So that's kind of the ambition with this video, is to kind of educate people and to inspire those to take more responsibility within their communities. And yeah. Hi. Eileen, are you there? I'm just waiting to see if Eileen. Okay, so yeah, that's the first part of the interview I completed with Eileen, and yeah, I have two other videos that I filmed with both Eileen and Corinne, both centering around gentrification, and then the third one centering around election community hustings that they hosted in Old Kent Road in 2018. And I think, yeah, it was just, I think it was a privilege first and foremost to work with all of those featured in the films. And it was obviously, as someone who's grown up in South London all my life, it was a privilege to kind of get out there and see the various local communities that exist. And yeah, I look forward to taking any questions. If you have any questions about the film or about the process, yeah, just feel free to unmute your microphone, and yeah. Guys, Eileen?
I've got one question I could throw in right away. I'm just curious, as these go forward, where will they be posted? How might they be advertised? What's kind of the plan for how they?
So, we released this I initially planned to, so I was going to upload them all onto my YouTube channel, and then I was going to just promote them across different social media platforms. I was going to hand them to Peckham Vision to promote across their platforms as well. So hopefully through posting through Facebook, through Instagram, me posting as well on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. And then I think I'm going to look at festivals as well. I'm going to see if there's other opportunities for filmmakers to obviously take advantage of Corona, to be honest. Because initially I would have liked to have gathered in Peckham Vision studio, for example, and to have everyone come down and we project it on the screen. But we have to adapt with the times. But I'll definitely look to spread awareness in local festivals. Maybe like the Peckham Film Festival. But that hasn't. I know that didn't happen last year, but I'll look for local opportunities to spread the word.
Hello, folks. I'm sorry, I've just discovered that my microphone was switched off, so that was why no one could hear what I was saying. So I apologize for that. I was just about to explain how we were going to handle this session, and you couldn't hear me because I was all mute myself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a conversation about the video making, how they're available, as George is explaining, about Peckham Vision, about community action, and about Peckham. Anything you want to ask or make comments on. But what I'd like to do is to suggest that for the first 20 minutes or so, we ask for people who are just residents, local residents, to speak. So I know there are a number of other people in the audience that we've invited. I think it's important that we just make an opportunity for everybody who's a local person to speak first. And what we mean by that is entirely up to you to define whether you're local or not. One of the guiding things that you can think of is Peckham your town centre. And that can spread for quite a distance, but that's what it means if you're local. There are other reasons that people are here because we work with them, and we're very interested to hear from them too about what they think. But if you could hang on, those of you who are like that, and give the first 20 minutes or so to the people who are local in some way or another. So it's over to you now, and what we'd like to do is, everybody's mute, and so if you want to speak, if you could, what we were going to do, say, Grace, if you could actually click on the raise hand in the participants column, and also if you've got a camera, if you wave, we will then keep a note of who it is who wants to speak. So in the confusion about me not having you couldn't hear me. Did you answer? Was Corinne's question about the availability of the videos, was that answered properly?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, George, was it answered properly?
Yeah, if anyone wants to find out anything more specific, or for example, if anyone wants me to send them actual direct hyperlinks to the videos, then that can be arranged as well. If you give your email address to Eileen or to me, and then I'll forward those to you as well.
Well, of course,
Thanks.
we have got everybody who's present. We've got their email addresses because that's available through the event.
Eileen, could I just say that Clyde has managed to find his way in, and I think came in partially through the video, and Janine has her hand up.
Yeah, good.
Just
Thank
before we
you
get into those
so,
things.
Clyde, we introduced ourselves, the Peckham Vision team, at the very beginning. So if you could just say hello, that's all, so people know that's who you are. And can you unmute him, Grace?
Hello, I'm Clyde, right?
Okay, that's it. All right, so, and it was Janine you would want to say.
Yes.
Hello, thanks, George. My name's Janine, and I'm a resident of the Old Camp Road. And I'm really interested in the stuff around gentrification. Obviously, there's masses happening on the Old Camp Road. And one of the things that really concerns me is that the lack of documentation of what's being lost on the Old Kent Road, so the businesses and the buildings. Because as far as I'm aware, there isn't, I mean, and as we know, these things happen over a very, very long, lengthy time scale, so it's quite difficult to capture some of this stuff. But I'd be interested in perhaps your thoughts or ideas, or anybody else's, if anybody else has any knowledge about it, is how you capture over time the process of loss on such a historic, a historic place.
Okay, now people don't actually have to just answer the question somebody else has posed, but you can do. So who would like to speak next?
I think initially what you could do is for something that's happening, Oakham Road is obviously a huge area. And it's interesting because in the last video, someone touches on the fact that currently they're trying to, it's like they're eradicating 1,000 years of working class history. I think a medium such as photography and like a paragraph or two from each of us shop owners, and if that could be somewhat displayed in a museum or something to commemorate the fact that people used to exist here before it became overdeveloped. I mean, Andre, you're a photographer as well. I'm not sure if that, do you have any thoughts as to what you would do?
No, George, I think you're pretty much spot on. Going to a few
Andre,
galleries.
could you see just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry. So hi, I'm Andre. I'm George's long-time school friend. Well, no longer in school now, but yeah. And as George said, I'm also a photographer. So that's me. And I do think, George, that would be a very good medium to show the change, because I guess the issue you have with, let's say,
a film or
video, or like a film, is that you won't have you'll have limited footage that dates back a long time, but there'll definitely be a photo that you can reproduce in the current setting, so you can compare and contrast how things have changed. And I've seen that done before, and if done quite well, it's very impactful.
Thanks, Andre. Anna, did you indicate that you wanted to speak?
Hello?
Can you unmute, Anna?
Yes, I did. I wanted to ask a kind of like maybe gentrification 101, but you mentioned in the video, Eileen, that they're intending to make some tram depots or something along those lines, and to improve the transportation. So I'm wondering, really, like, how do you feel that, or how do you think, or how does anyone in general, think that is going to have a direct impact on the livelihood of the people of Peckham? I mean, I live myself in Peckham. I live quite close to the town centre, and so it's just to ask that question. How do you think that we would be impacted? How do you expect that to affect us?
Well, Anna, the thing is, that was our first campaign, and it was 15 years ago, and we won. It took us 4 years, but we got that plan squashed. And we got the plan squashed because we convinced the Transport for London that the site wasn't derelict. They had been led to believe that it was derelict, and that was why they were planning to demolish the rest of the buildings and build the tram depot. That was what created Peckham Vision in the first place, and what actually kept me going, because I was so shocked that a plan could be produced like that on such wrong information about what was happening in the neighbourhood, and why now my personal latest campaign is that no development should happen anywhere until everybody who's got a stake in the site has actually been talked to and contributed to a factual report about what's actually happening there. It would have been devastating. Peckham Town Centre and Rye Lane would never have recovered if that had actually happened. So that's the answer to your question, but thank goodness we actually stopped it. And not only did we stop it, it's enabled, whatever one thinks about it, it showed that a local economy can recover itself. That all happened without any intervention from the public authorities or even large commercial developers. That was the other thing. Fortunately, the people who owned the site was a private company, and they'd been convinced by our campaign that there was value in the site without demolishing it and building another 7-8 story buildings for flats and the wrong kind of shops. And so that's what we proved. So anyway, Anna, we did actually, and I think that's the point of George's video, really, that I take, which is he's showing that local people together can make a difference.
Hi, Eileen.
Who else would like to speak?
I'd like to comment on both of those points shortly, but Lynn has her hand up.
Okay, Lynn?
I just wanted to ask George if he had ever done sort of like a public, more like campaign where amazing photography and what you're describing, talking to the shop owners, getting a paragraph and putting them up in the public space so that the community sees what they're going to lose. The community, as Corinne mentioned, going out and going, I didn't know this was here. I didn't know that was there. Love to connect people more and find out what exists, and people don't find out what they're losing till it's too late. And we could make posters and we could fly post, and we don't, we could apply for a grant, but I mean, they've done some of that around a school over here. They put up old historical pictures and they got some of the community fund to do that. But you don't have to, one doesn't have to wait for that.
Yeah,
just wondering what you think about that.
No, that's beautiful feedback, and I think that's one of the more poignant, the more powerful effects of street art, I've ranging from graffiti to hanging a photo in a public place or to projecting a film onto a wall. I will look into that. I know Alex was actually mentioning to me about funding, because she has a bit of experience in that. But that's something that I think that sounds like a scope for collaboration on. And Old Kent Road is something that I think is going to change so drastically over the next coming years. So it would be nice to document that, because it is it's a huge part of Southwark. It's been a huge part of my life whenever I've gone into central London and come back. So yeah.
I think Alex is next. Alex, could you unmute Alex, Grace?
Yeah, hi. So basically, I'm a social designer and I worked with the community of Peckham last year. And I think a lot of the time, it's more like for me a comment, but I think a lot of the time we see, like the importance of the heritage as a building, as a site, but we often forget about the, heritage as like a community, as an experience. And I just wanted to know, what do you do about it? For example, I was talking about the fact that the hairdressers, for example, which is really core to the community in Peckham, have been removed. I mean, they're getting removed from the high street. So can we not consider that actually, their experience, and their knowledge as heritage as well?
Okay, and who would like to speak next?
I'd like to make a quick comment here, and all of these things are really pertinent. The Old Kent Road is devastating, there's had decades of regeneration and all sorts of destruction from the turn of the century onwards, and the greatest loss in many ways, not just of the war, but was the loss of the docks in the area. And the trouble that we all find ourselves in, and it was true in Peckham as well as anywhere else, is that, as Lynn was saying, we get around to these things when it's far too late, and we end up being in a position where we are documenting a loss and not the things that are valuable, that should remain. And the Peckham is still under the sort of same, the exact same things now than it was, when I first met when I first met Eileen, insofar as nobody valued the for instance, the Art Deco buildings. They were not valued by the architectural world, so therefore they are not really considered, or were not at the time considered, to be of any value to the community. But the community wasn't asked, and so on and so forth. And so I'd rather pose to Janine's question is, are we just actually going to accept that these things are going to be demolished and lost if they are valuable to the community now? I think the mood is strong enough to really question the validity of these things over and over again. And it's not right that these huge swathes of London, that certainly the Southwark part of the Old Kent Road will not benefit from the developments that are happening, or to pay for an underground, that they are actually have no value. And if they have no value to local communities, they should not be built. And you know, these kind of thoughts and expressions really should come to the fore dramatically now, because of not just the, you know, the situation, environment we find ourselves in with COVID, but the environmental destruction that these things cause as well. Thanks, Eileen.
Thanks, Corinne. Is anyone who is a local resident who hasn't spoken yet, who would like to speak before we open it to everybody? Anybody wanting to speak? Okay, open to anyone then. Who would like to? Claire, Claire Hegarty, were you indicating? Could you unmute Claire, please?
Which Claire?
Oh,
Claire
hi.
Hegarty.
I've unmuted myself.
All right, good, okay.
Okay.
I thought you couldn't do that, okay.
I've worked with George and with the Peckham Heritage Regeneration Partnership and with Eileen, and we've worked on some films, and it was a great pleasure. I think I kind of really want to encourage George as a filmmaker and as an artist, because I think there's a really famous essay that was written in the 70s called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. Does anybody know it? Written by a woman called Laura Mulvey, and she sort of encourages people to explore the kind of capacity of film to unpack a kind of emotional content.
Yes.
And I think that George is really, I think you're really good at kind of intuitively responding to people and places, and I just would love to encourage you and help you to kind of you've got the sense that you take time to look closely at some things that people don't notice, which is part of how places are experienced. And I think you've got a kind of sense that you're quite sensitive about representing people's characters and places' character. And I think there is a real potential for film work like you're doing to deal with all these issues that Corinne was just referring to, about how places aren't valued and how certain sorts of building aren't valued, by re-describing them and kind of highlighting aspects that are just overlooked, for various reasons. So this is really a message to George of support and encouragement, and I think you have got a real sensitivity, George, and a kind of artistic eye and awareness.
Thank you so kindly for those words. I think it's that kind of feedback that really kind of reinforces or just inspires you to keep producing more work. Yeah, for sure. I think it's just a product of, for me anyway, I can only speak for me, but growing up I primarily lived all over Southeast London, but growing up in a community where it's diverse, where you kind of juxtaposed between, in a delicate position between, for example, being an immigrant and then being from a working class background, but also seeing like the opportunities that the city has to offer. I think it just kind of grounds you in a sense that you're kind of able to reciprocate and understand. I can go to areas like Hackney, for example, and some people might choose to see poverty where I can see the life and the evidence of the shops that exist. Look inside the shops and see that there's a thriving community. And I think it's not just me, I think it's a whole generation of people coming out now who are willing to promote the beauty of Black London. So I do want to collaborate. Thank you very much for that feedback.
Do you want to say something, Clyde? Oh, Andre was first, sorry. I'm noting your blue hand, Andre.
Oh, yeah, cheers.
You next, Clyde.
I just kind of wanted to kind of second what Claire said, that George did this. Even though I know you've been working on this for a while, you've never spoken about it, and it was great. And I think you never speaking about it. I think it's kind of, for me, it's kind of a testimony to. It's you're making the video with the purest intentions. It's to showcase. I mean, I felt moved by it, and it was great to see what Peckham Visions and what Eileen is doing, because I'm not quite a Peckham resident. I'm from Lewisham, but I know that there's been a change in or Peckham has been evolving for some time, and I definitely knew it was deep into the evolution when I was at university, and a person from, where were they from? Somewhere in Scotland were just like, oh yeah, I'm coming down to London, I'm going to live in Peckham. And a few people were like, oh, I'm going to live in Peckham. And I thought, okay, now it's a hotspot. Whereas when I was growing up, it would be seen slightly differently. And it's what I see, what I didn't see in it when I was young, but I recognize that I missed it, is that it really does have a strong community. And that's what this video showed, is that the people of Peckham care, and we will play an active part in keeping Peckham, or keeping the core, the spirit of Peckham alive, and what it is. And George, I don't know why you didn't show me a draft of this before, but I'm happy you didn't, because now it hit me. It hit me.
Let me respond to that. I've what's it? So I have actually shown a draft of this film. Oh no, actually no. Yeah, technically no, Andre, you're right. I haven't shown this part of the film. I've shown a draft of the other side of like the other at the South Social Film Festival last year, but at that point I hadn't completed the interview with Eileen. So I was always waiting to complete the interview with Eileen before I pushed everything out, because I just felt like that was such a. I think there've been a few people who've created a lot of content around gentrification in Peckham, but I just thought Eileen's angle was just something that was unexplored. And when I was even filming it, I was thinking, I don't know why, like, because I still work in TV, but even at the time I was working in a television production company, and I was just thinking to myself, Eileen's story seems more powerful and a lot more relevant than a lot of these stories that these other people are getting permissions to put out. So I've always felt like Eileen's angle is Peckham Vision's angle is very unique. And that's always been, I'm glad that I finally knuckled down thanks very much to Clive and Mary, who were scheduled to be part of the Zoom, but they helped me film the video as well. And I'm glad we finally got the videos now in a place where we can push it out and spread awareness. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Who would like to speak now?
Raquel had a hand up.
Raquel, yep. Unmute yourself, I think you can do it.
Yes, I think it's working now.
Okay.
I wanted to say thank you for inviting us for this screen. It's really nice to see the video. And I wanted to check, you probably mentioned about what is the latest for George's work, what are you working at the moment? And for Peckham Vision as well, Eileen, I wanted to find out what is the latest and how you're coping whilst we're all like in kind of lockdown. And if you have heard about the, I think, Eilesham Centre, the development centre that is going to happen near Morrison. So I would like to know your views on that.
Okay, well that's very, very timely. And Claire Hegarty can say something about that as well. Well, what's interesting is for me personally, and I think the other members of the Peckham Vision team, is that our lives have got even more pressured and more active in this lockdown. How we'll ever cope when we have to go physically to meetings again, I don't know. And so this is our first encounter in the sort of more public arena, but we have done a number of Zoom sessions internally across Southwark on the planning network, because there are lots of people, hundreds of people across Southwark and across the country are doing this kind of work, and it's never portrayed properly in the media. So, you know, I'm thrilled by what people are saying about George's video, because there's a really important piece of work to do yet to explain to the public at large what's going on in the development world to start with, which is terrible. And the other is what people can do about it. And we just, the thousands of people across the country doing this kind of work very rarely get the right kind of press. So on the Aylsham Centre, that's really very significant, because we're just about to launch a campaign with Peckham Heritage Regeneration Partnership and the Peckham Society and Peckham Vision. We're setting up something called the Aylsham Community Action, because we think that first of all, the consultation on it is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. So I won't preempt it, I won't take any more time, but watch out in this space. And if I think what we might do is when we send the email out after this event, I'll ask you whether you want to join in, who would like to join the mailing list for this new campaign that's about to start, which is a collaboration mainly between Peckham Vision and Peckham Heritage Regeneration Partnership. And Claire Hegarty knows all about that because she's the chair of PHRP. And together we're all setting up this new community action group, which is going to bring everybody together. So it could be devastating for Peckham Town Centre, and it just typifies everything that's wrong with the development world. So but there are many other issues as well. And in terms of, at some point, we hope we can get back to having events in the studio, but over the next several weeks, we hope to put a new display in our shop in Holden's Arcade, which gives the latest messages about what's going on, and to turn the shop not into a shop, but into a window display where people know that that's where they should go to find out what's happening on all these kinds of issues. So that's what I've got to say at the moment. Claire, would you like to say something, Claire Hegarty, about the Ocean campaign?
Thanks, Eileen. Hi, Raquel. I'm from outside Peckham, and I was kind of brought in to chair the Peckham Heritage Regeneration Partnership, and that's how I got to know Eileen and Corinne and Peckham Vision. And we've always been aware that there was something imminent on the Aylsham Centre, and it's been this kind of object of dread and a sense of what is happening. And as you know, there was a consultation in February, and then the results of that were kind of, or the response to that was presented at the end of July. And we have taken a bit of time to try to quickly think about this and come to some sense of what the issues are, just the beginning of an understanding. But as Eileen said, the big struggle, the kind of urgent struggle now is to say this consultation is not good enough, it's not adequate, there's not enough time, people are rushed and people are struggling with COVID. So we've set up, as Eileen said, we set up this new group, which is very organic, and it's very, it's just very much about how can we find a way of bringing everyone together to come to an understanding and create more time to respond to this kind of overwhelming sense of what's happening at the Aylsham development.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I'd noticed that Mary, Mary Sesse, you had your blue hand up, but it's gone now. Do you still want to speak?
Yes, I did put my hand down, but I did actually just want to say, originally, thank you, George. This is amazing work. I'm so happy with the results of what you created here. I think that shining a light on Peckham Visions is one of the best things that you can do, because, but again, Eileen, Corinne, thank you for the work that you're doing in Peckham. As somebody who grew up around Elephant and Castle, Peckham, Camberwell, I've seen so much over the years, and I would have to say that most definitely the changes over the years is, I'd say, on some of the residents, especially for the first generation population whose parents don't speak a lot of English, getting involved with the community can be quite difficult for so many different layers and barriers, even though the parents that can participate do. Being most of the working class, they are working, so getting involved, being able to participate and show up is quite hard. So having community centres and with the work that you're actually doing, focusing on finding out projects that are going forward without community involvement and bringing awareness to the community is just one of the utmost important things that can be done at this moment in time. And George, you highlighting your film work in this direction is an interest of mine. It's something that I think that people should get more involved in and put their attention and talents to, because I think we could all together, in light of lockdown, in light of COVID, all the things that's actually happened around us, would be able to focus more now and pay more attention and bring the awareness that's actually needed in this area. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to say something to that, George?
I mean, no, I totally agree. I think that it's only through, I mean, we have a generation of, even from a technology perspective, we have a generation of filmmakers now who are growing up around YouTube, who are growing up with cameras on their phone. We've seen what's happening with the internet, for example, with the tragic killing of George Floyd, and how that resulted in the Black Lives Matter movement resurfacing. I think it's a time where creators, for those of us in the chat, we have to kind of be conscientious and take the responsibility to contribute to the change that we ultimately want to see. And I think it's a good, I mean, Corona obviously has been a stressful time, but it's also been a good time to reflect. And I think I think we should definitely utilize these spaces like Zoom, all of this stuff more to create work that's going to influence change, and us ourselves become influencers and hopefully inspire our peers, people that are younger than us, to get involved. So I totally agree with you, Mary.
Okay, thanks, George. Who else would like to say something? Claire Richards, I see you on the screen, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just wondering, as somebody who's got a very distinct interest in a number of things that we've been talking about, do you want to say something?
I'd be happy to Eileen, and you're absolutely right, because my head is buzzing with so many things as a result of what I saw both in the film and what you and Corinne were saying as well. Because I'm an architect now. My interest is in how do we protect places like Peckham? How do we create more sustainable communities? And as an architect, that's where I focus. But my background is all in documentary filmmaking. George, I remember meeting you at Peckham Vision, and first of all, I wanted to absolutely agree with the point that the strength of a film is that it has some kind of emotional engagement, and when it is also evident that the kind of pressure that is needed to bring about change, or to prevent the wrong kind of change at a local level, where that local pressure, and preferably local collaborative pressure, is so important, you need to be able to convey, you are the ones with the emotional investment. Local people are the ones who can say this matters to us, and that's the thing we have to convey. So I think I was slightly sort of scratching my head when, George, you were talking about how to get that message out there. I think, well, of course, we have the advantage of social media now, but then there's also the fact, one needs to get it out to the people who need to hear the message. Because I have no doubt that Peckham Vision, and now also collaborating across local organisations, that message will get out locally. And as I say, that's really important. I think the question is how we, at the other end of the spectrum, make sure that the way we are developing places changes in such a way, changes systemically.
Yes.
This kind of message is really important, but how do we connect the two? And Eileen, I'm sure Eileen not only does amazing things in Peckham, but Eileen is out there. I mean, there was a force to reckon with at the examination in public of the draft London plan, making all these points. And that's the other half of it, and we need 1 million Eileens, so I wish I had an answer, but I think we are all pushing at the same door, and we all need to scream and shout and hold our stand our ground.
No, I definitely hear you. A million Eileens. What? What comes?
God help us all. No, look, it's not that. That's why I've gone on with this, because actually you don't need a million. You need only a few people everywhere. And the crucial thing is how to find them, how to support them, how to train them, how to educate them, and how to connect them with other people that they can learn all these things from. And actually, there's great work going on. There are a number, three or four people that are involved in this session at the moment, of which Claire is one. In fact, the two Claires, Claire Hegarty and Claire Richard, there's suddenly an awful lot of Claires involved in this world. So we don't need any more. We don't need millions of Claires. I mean, in terms of names. Anyway, the thing is, yes, there's a huge amount of work to do, but it's exciting because it's exciting and also frustrating. It's exciting because everywhere in the country, and certainly everywhere in London, there are people working like this all the time, and it's so what we need is just a small amount of support resource for them to suddenly, for that to blossom. It always reminds me of what it's like in a desert. A desert can have no rain for years, and it can have one rainfall, and overnight the seeds all germinate and all flower and all reproduce themselves. And actually that's what's going on here in this kind of world. We just need a little bit, but we need to organize ourselves in a way. And that's what I'm certainly involved. How I met Claire Richards, in fact, was because I went to the City Hall examination in public, and Claire was there giving evidence for her own sake, because she thought the plan needed an awful lot of changes. And it's this organic way in which we meet each other, and we need to support ourselves. The key thing I would like to get across to the funders and the people who've got money to support kinds of things: stop giving so much money to local voluntary sector organizations, imagining that it will get through to the grassroots. Can we please have some money being directly given to the grassroots so we can support ourselves? Now, I've noticed that Lynn Björk is nodding her head here, because look, we've just had like a desert experience in the last 6 months. What happened? Suddenly we went into lockdown. Suddenly there was a crisis. There was no way in which the public sector or the corporate world could actually meet the needs of the people on the street. What happened was the people came out of their houses, talked to each other, and set up mutual aid groups all across the country. But you know what? Now that we're getting into some other thing, this will get strangled if we're not careful. What we need is a new way of thinking about supporting these really neighborhood, street level activities without having to go through the voluntary sector. And that, I have to say, is another thing I'm working on with an organization called Just Space, which is a network of people like us all across London, which has already got 12 years of amazing experience of working with some people in the universities and some other organizations. And it's a thrill, because it's happening there at neighborhood level, borough level, and London level, and across the country as well. And so what we need is, I don't know, support for the people who are killing themselves doing all the work. We just need a little bit of support, and I think it would blossom. I haven't got the immediate answer to that now, unfortunately. Who else would like to speak?
Richard had his hand up, and then Claire.
Sorry, who was the first person?
Richard.
Richard. Richard. Introduce yourself.
So Eileen just mentioned a London-wide community network called Just Space, and Eileen and myself work very closely within that London-wide network. And some of the materials that this London-wide Just Space group produces is all about storytelling from different parts of London. I mean, we have a recent website called estatewatch.london, and you can find on that a number of short films and video interviews from people from other neighbourhoods in different parts of London. And I'm just feeling it would be really great if there was something similar as a series of voices from Peckham that could go alongside the Peckham Vision films. So what I was thinking was a series of very short interviews with traders, with young people from Peckham, with elders, with all those who aren't very visible, you know, who are marginalised by the system, and yet whose voice really deserves to be respected and acknowledged. So I would include those drawn to Black Lives Matter within that as well. And I'm just wondering, George, I had a look at your YouTube and I saw prolific output from you on YouTube. But I didn't know where to focus my attention in, because what I was looking for was some very short, snappy interviews from the people from a variety of people in Peckham about what's really happening on the ground and how things have to change. And I couldn't easily find it, but I'm sure it's all there because you've got prolific output. So it's just an appeal as to whether you could consider, alongside the Peckham Vision trilogy, if you were able somehow to put together something fairly short that was a series of interviews of the people on the ground, so that the traders and the young people, those involved in Black Lives Matter locally, so that all those voices can really get a prominent hearing all over London and all over the world. I think this would be a wonderful thing if you could do it.
Okay. Do you want to say something, George, immediately to that?
That's very valuable feedback as well about the prolific output. I feel like across several projects I've touched on what you were just talking about. I feel like the beauty of this project, at least, was the fact that it was kind of just my voice. It's like it was a two-way communication just between me and the contributor, so whoever I was interviewing. And I think in a couple of my other projects, I haven't had, maybe when you're working with an organization, you don't quite have the scope to delve into criticism or to anything that will potentially damage the funder. Whereas here, I've kind of had the space, which is why I wanted to give the project just no restriction. I don't want to give it a time restriction, or I gave anyone the platform to speak anything they want to speak about. But for sure, I would like to complete a series of more interviews, and of course, just to increase awareness, because I'll take that. I'll definitely learn from that in regards to if someone visits my website I want them to be able to access the kind of content they want to find out as quickly as possible. So yeah, for sure, that's very valuable feedback. Thank you.
Claire Hegarty, do you want to say something else?
Yeah. I mean, it's been touched on by the previous two voices. I think there's something really needed in our world, which is people being given space to kind of speak out and be heard. It's something I think you do very well, Eileen. You kind of generously explain and share your ideas, and I was just going to encourage George to have confidence in his own voice and to use himself in the films as well as a sort of presence that is occupying his own films. Because I think in the Peckham Vision film we just saw, when you had the shots of yourself in this place or in this landscape, it kind of gave the film a sort of really clear voice. And again, this connects back to Richard's points about the voices of the individuals in Peckham. So there's something about not being a kind of neutralized system and sort of generalizations, but allowing distinctive voices and personalities to be expressed.
Okay, I'd also like to this is all really wonderful, and thank you very much everybody for making your contributions. It's now just after 3:15, and on some of the emails that we sent out, we did say that we would be ending at 3:15. We couldn't do that on Eventbrite, so we said 3:30. So what I was going to say was that we could end the formal session now, if anybody needs to go because they thought it was going to end at 3:15, that would be fine. But we've still got time on this thing, and I think we could just have an informal conversation now. I'd just like to say, before anybody leaves, that we will be following up with an email so that we can ask you for your reflective feedback on the session, on George's video, or anything else you want to say. And I'm just getting my notes to make sure I cover everything I wanted to say. Yeah, that's basically it. And I think I don't know if anybody's tweeted anything, or but if you do tweet anything now afterwards or put anything on Instagram, if you could tag @Peckham Vision in, it means that we can spread that word out a bit more. And what I'd like to say now is thank you to everybody who's come. Thank you especially to George and Mary, who were involved in some of the film, was involved in some of the filming. But George, thank you so much for sticking with us and producing this wonderful material. And folks, do watch his other videos as well, because it's an amazing story that he's been recording, and also his selection of comments and his selection of the audio in relation to the visuals, which we had hardly any role in at all, just correcting them here and there. You know, it's all George's work, and so that's fantastic. I'm very pleased that he's had a very positive response. And now, folks, I think we'll just you can all unmute yourself to speak if you wish to, and we'll just go on till maybe about 3:30 and have any conversations anybody wants to have. And thank you very much, everybody.
Before we start, I'd just like to say that again. I'll forward all 5 videos. So there's three with Peckham Vision and there's 2 with other people. So I'll forward all 5. I'll provide all 5 hyperlinks just so you guys can pick or browse or see what other topics I can talk about. But yeah, thank you very much for your time.
George, will all 5 videos be on your YouTube channel? That's what I was imagining would happen.
Technically, they're up. They're just unlisted. So what that means is if you have a hyperlink, you can view it.
Okay.
But I haven't released them widely to. So if you were to click on my YouTube channel, you wouldn't see them. Okay. But if I get you, so yeah. But
so
I will be.
You send me the other 2, because I've got 3 of them. You send me the other 2, and we'll send them out to everybody who's here.
Yes, and then yeah, I'll be releasing those videos through probably from tomorrow going on until like Wednesday or Thursday. So.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak? It's over to you now.
I'm going to grab the other links for the very much.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Raquel. He's going.
Yeah, I also wanted to comment on I just think it's a really amazing and thought-provoking video. You know, yeah. I think that it's really just touched me to see the collective consciousness of everyone coming together, you know, yeah. for a greater purpose to benefit everybody. And I just want to say thank you so much, Eileen. Thank you to Corinne. Thank you so much, George, as well, for making sure that the voice of the people within Peckham is heard, you know. So that's all I would really like to just piggyback off what everyone was saying. I think it was an amazing and brilliant video. I think it shed a lot of light, you know. I learned a lot. It was quite educational. And I'm actually quite excited to see, you know, where Peckham Vision evolves to, you know, and George's filmmaking, of course, as well.
Yeah, thank you, Anna.
I just wanted to say what I really enjoyed most about it is the kind of modern look at activism and how that's inspirational to people, particularly at this time where there is so much going on. It's so timely, actually, when you think about it. You know, I think you said it took a long time to actually get this all together, but the time that you're going to be releasing this is actually perfect because of what's going on globally across the world, and that people, like Eileen said in the film, is that, you know, we live in a democracy, but unless we actually act upon it, then we're not living in a democracy at all, really. And I think that's really inspirational, because I think a lot of people feel very voiceless and that they can't take action a lot of the time with even the smallest of things and a lot of the big global world issues. And it's amazing to see women especially really focusing on bringing together what's right and doing what they can to make sure that voices are heard and to be selfless in their acts, because I think that's often what's missed sometimes in activism, is that it's very focused on what affects you as an individual, but it's also really important to focus on the greater good for other people and what's the right thing to do. So I thought that for me was one of the key things that I got out of it, and I really love the fact that you captured that, George, and you captured the energy and the spirit of people who just want to make sure that, you know, things are right effectively.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Yeah.
Can I just quickly say something, Eileen, and just listen to what Alicia is saying here. You know, I think the time is right. What we were just talking about, the amazing response, local response to the pandemic, and the way in that sort of display of social cohesion and social action that just sprung up from these groups, you know, that, as you say, do exist, but generally haven't been heard. What that's done is that I think it's made everybody understand that this is more achievable, that actually you can do these things locally, that a sort of neighborhood community spirit does exist. And equally, that if we don't do something to maintain it, if we let that sort of ball drop, then we will be losing something really precious. And I think now really, really is the moment off the back of this, well, let's hope it'll be the back of this, to run with that. It's a bit like, you know, when you look out of the window now and there are more cars than there were, and don't you remember a couple of months ago everybody saying, isn't this great, we never need to get back in our cars again. How long did that feeling last? And we've got to, I think we've all got to make sure that we act now and that we make our noise now, because this is when people are most receptive.
I was just wondering whether, Lynn, you might like to say something from your perspective of being very involved in the mutual aid groups.
Yeah, I actually wanted to comment. I agree completely with what people are saying about, you know, we were told you can't house the homeless, and then we saw them house the homeless. We were told that you can't feed people who need food. And then, you know, whilst the government wasn't there for the first, you know, month or so, we figured out how to feed people who need food. And then the government got it together and started feeding people who needed food in order to stay safe and stay inside. We were told so many things, you can't, but you can have that, you know. And so I think this is an opportunity where it's shown that that is a lie. That is a lie. It is all down to political will. And, you know, where I come from, like 60% of Americans can't afford a $400 unexpected health bill because they don't have health care as a right. So this is a really important time. I think everybody recognizes that. And one of the things that I think would not be a surprise to anybody here, because many people here have far more experience than I do in organizing and in trying to, you know, I don't know, connect community. That's what I'm interested in. Is that we also need to be able to create spaces to celebrate together, right? Because this is hard work. People in mutual aid are a bit falling over at this point because they've been doing it, and they're also being asked to do other things, you know, and the family and the work wants them to do this or that. And so we have to celebrate. We have to celebrate George's film. We have to celebrate Peckham Vision. We have to celebrate the community that we live in now, and not wait for it to be under threat, but in a way that revitalizes people, in a way that gives them, you know, some positive energy, so that, you know, we have the energy to keep going. And I love meeting people, and I love seeing the vibrancy of community. And that's what keeps me going. I haven't been able to do it very much. So I'd love to think of creative ways that we can safely do this. I mean, I think the council should be, you know, using Peckham Park. We should have, you know, we should have canopies up there where you could sign up on a website, and we could do park sessions, and you know, and we could talk about George's work. We could have a free open air film festival. You know, we could be doing things, teaching the school kids in a safe environment. We could be talking about things that, you know, community, you know, needs and wants to talk about, but hasn't had a space to do it safely. You know, there's a lot of things we could do, but also that we need to find, you know, we need to find the joy, and we need to rejuvenate and support this, getting some positive energy as well, because it is tough. But I think it is a time where we could seize the day. And I'm really, really pleased to see, you know, I grew up in California, and I've been here for 15 years. I am so pleased to see the young people out there, the elders, people talking, people connecting. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop there, but I just, you know, it's just really, really hopeful, but hope requires action, right? Hope doesn't just manifest. Action is where hope comes from. So I hope to keep acting to support that. Thanks.
Okay, well, we've got just a few minutes left. I'd just like to say that the Rye Lane Mutual Aid Group, which covers the Rye Lane ward, where Rye Lane is the sort of, it's on both sides of Rye Lane. So the whole ward is called the Rye Lane ward, and there was a Rye Lane Mutual Aid Group, and that's really how, well, I knew Lynn before, but that's how we've encountered each other again. I'm hoping that we can work out what kind of constructive relationship there might be between the Rye Lane Mutual Aid Group and Peckham Vision going forward. Because actually it is hard work, folks, very hard work. And there's a limit to how much individuals can put in it. So I hope that maybe my closing remarks on this might be that we can use this new energy that George has helped us to create and bringing together people who haven't met each other before. We'll send out an email and hope that I'll talk to George about how we might continue to energize this particular little network, informal network that's taken part in this video showing today, in this discussion, and what we might collectively bring out of that in a new kind of way, because we need new ways of communicating with each other. We need new ways of acting together to do this kind of thing. The old ways won't work. So we need new ways, and I'd just like to thank everybody who's spent an hour and a half or so on a Saturday afternoon to do this, and thank George again for the amazing work that you've done for the last 2.5 years. Thank you.